And now let me welcome onto the show Texas head coach Chris Beard. Chris, you changed jobs this offseason. You're now in Austin, which is probably a good thing, but you also have to work with Chris Ogden again, and I don't know if that's always a positive. So what has these first 6 months been for you back in Austin?
I think that's one of those deals when I get to the pearly gates one day, like no matter kind of what's gone down in other areas, just the fact that I've spent so much time with Augie is going to give me a first pass, hopefully. That's the idea.
So you've completely remade this roster. It's not something that you are unaccustomed to doing. It's kind of what you've built yourself on. I'm curious. You have some roots kind of in the JUCO level, and I do think that is part of the reason why you're so good at taking a bunch of people and not just building a roster, but building a team out of them. So what have you been doing this offseason to try to get these guys, one, used to you, and two, used to playing with each other?
Yeah, I think the kind of current climate of college basketball, I've heard some coaches say I'm kind of uncomfortable with the roster turnover and all this. And actually, it's exactly where my comfort zone is. And like you mentioned, it kind of goes back to my small college background, beginning in junior college, all the way up to a couple of professional basketball opportunities I've had where our roster changed even during the season. So to me, it's nothing new. I think once you get the team together that doesn't have a lot of experience playing together, what the key is, I think is time. I tell the guys all the time, what we're fighting more than anything is time. We're trying to compete against people that have been together longer than we have. And with that in mind, we try to win each day. Sometimes it's just as simple as something as, instead of getting your grab and go post-practice meal, let's all take some time here and sit down together and eat together today. This weekend, instead of everybody enjoying your well-deserved free time, let's try to have one team activity where we all go hang out, on Saturday morning and do X, Y, Z. So that's definitely what we feel like internally here. It's one of our biggest threats and one of our biggest challenges is we're just fighting time.
So let's talk about who's impressed you so far this offseason. I think Marcus Carr is a guy that's gotten quite a bit of hype. Trey Mitchell was a guy that people have pretty high expectations for. He's pretty highly regarded and highly recruited in the transfer portal. You got Dylan Daisu, I hope I pronounced that correctly, coming in from Vanderbilt. Christian Bishop, I have to read off of a list to get through all of your transfers. That's how many new faces you have. Timmy Allen from Utah, Devin Askew from Kentucky, and your guy, Avery Benson. I know you love him coming in with you from Texas Tech. So which one of these guys has kind of surprised you so far in the offseason?
Yeah, I got asked that the other day. I kind of try to think about questions and not just speak. Surprise, I'm not sure. I think all these guys to this point have kind of, kept their end of the bargain. They've done exactly what they told us they would do coming into the organization. And I feel like we're doing the same from the coaching end. So many guys to talk about. You always kind of shy away as a coach trying to mention individual guys. But, one thing I would tell you with the transfers is everybody has been open to change. Like I tell the guys all the time, like if you want different results, you have to have different actions. It's like me. I've never won the national championship, so I can't go into this season coaching like I always have. I have to try to find some improvements. We call those, the 1%. We're always trying to find improvements. And I think the same thing's through with these transfers. Although many of them have great individual resumes and have done a lot of work in college basketball, the ultimate plan obviously hasn't worked for them yet, or they would be in the NBA now, or they would have a national championship themselves. So we all go into this deal, myself included, knowing that we're going to have to make some changes. And it's not surprising, but it is very pleasing that all of our guys have been really open to change at this point.
And it's actually a perfect segue to the next question I wanted to ask you, which is about Marcus Carr. He's a guy, he had some success at Pitt as a freshman individually, not necessarily from a team perspective. He had some success at Minnesota as a sophomore and a junior. Individually, again, not quite to the level that you would have wanted to from a team perspective. He's always been kind of like this shoot first, score first kind of a guy. And now you're putting him on a roster, which I would say is the most talented he's ever been on in his college career. So how have you kind of been able to mold him into being more of a kind of point guard guy and someone that can kind of carry a team as opposed to just being someone that can put up numbers?
Yeah, I have no problem talking about Marcus, and I'm proud to be his coach. I believe in Marcus. I believe in his path, his journey to this point, and I believe in his plan and his dream of where he could go next. He's a really good player. All of us in college basketball, you and me included, understand that. The thing I would tell you is he's also an intangibles guy. He has a great ability to not get sped up. Our practices are very intense. He's playing against great defense and great ball pressure every day in practice, but he very rarely turns the ball over. He plays at his own pace, very similar to one of the last great guards I coached, Keenan Evans. It's really hard to speed Keenan up. He was always had that poised pro demeanor. I believe Keenan will play in the NBA one day. I believe Marcus will play in the NBA one day. But Marcus is fun to coach. He can do a lot of things that you just can't teach. But I think right now, early in our journey, although I've never coached him in a game yet, I just think his poise, and you can't rattle him. And I think that's a big time characteristic for playmaking guards.
Yeah, I've always said that your best teams are teams that have 2 or 3 guys that can kind of play make in the backcourt, where you'll run your stuff and you'll get to a point where it's like, all right, there's 10 seconds left on the clock. Keenan, go make a play. Jarrett Culver, go make a play. Matt Mooney, go make a play. And when you pair that with someone like a Tariq Evans that has that kind of that size and that athleticism and that ability to catch stuff around the rim, like that's when teams get really, really dangerous. And I think you have that this year. So who else, along with Marcus in that backcourt, is kind of taking a step forward? Is it Devin? Is it Andrew Jones? Is it Courtney Ramey? And is it nice having a wealth of options that you can kind of look at and go to?
Yeah, that's the plan. No, I don't think you can win 6 games in 3 weekends with 1 or 2 good players or one playmaker. I think you got to have that diversity and variety and depth. That's certainly our objective. I think with our specific team, Ramey is a very experienced player. He's an all-conference player in the Big 12, voted upon by his coaches, myself included, over the years. I think very similar to Marcus and others. Now the idea is, can you take the next step as a player and impact winning, and be consistent? And we're really pleased with Ramey internally. He's done about everything we've asked him to do from day one. April 1st, the very first night I was here after the press conference, I came over to the basketball facility. We were walking around. We went upstairs. I still had the suit and tie on, maybe not the tie. I shedded that pretty quick, but we went up to the practice gym, and here he is. He's in there shooting shots by himself. Him and I talked on an old training table over in the corner long before he decided whether he was going to come back and play at Texas. But Ramey's a guy that works. No one puts more time into their craft than Ramey. I look for him to have another breakout season like Marcus. Certainly Devin is such an interesting guy to talk about. It's like when the NBA scouts come in, they see Devin, when they view him as a freshman, hey, that guy's got 4 years left. He's one of the best young players in college basketball. You forget that he reclassed and played basically his senior year in high school at Kentucky for a really good coach, Coach Cal. Every player would love to have Coach Cal your last year in high school. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of the way, Devin's process went. So Devin has a great future. There's a major role for him right now. Obviously, Ramey and Marcus are experienced guys. And then we have the next tier playmaker too, whether it be Timmy Allen, a positionless guy, Jones working his way off more of a scoring role into more of a playmaking role. So lots of things going on with our roster.
Yeah, so you probably can go 10, 11, maybe even 12 deep if you really needed to. So I think the most difficult thing that you're probably going to run into is kind of managing egos and making sure everyone's bought in on the same page. And, maybe some guys that were playing 25, 30 minutes before are going to be getting 10, 15 minutes. So how do you as a coach kind of balance that and kind of get that buy-in and that collective spirit? I think, it's never people want to play, right? If you're a basketball player, you want to be playing basketball.
Yeah, it all starts kind of with our mission. We all have the same objective. And it started in recruiting. We start each practice talking about it. And, the thing around here is winning. And we tell our guys when we win, we all eat. And I really believe that. You look at last year's national championship, Baylor. I thought Scott and those guys did a great job blending those guys. And, whether it be Butler and Mitchell playing together, whether it be Mayer coming off the bench as a 6-man, all the things that go into putting together a team. This is coaching. And ultimately, most teams, most contenders, it comes down to whether the chemistry experiment is successful. And this year we have a lot of optimism because we have high character guys that are playing for each other and they understand what the deal is. The other thing is, when our best players at Texas, they're NBA hopefuls. And we just try to remind the guys, the most important thing is the process, not the outcome. The most important thing is working on your game and becoming a pro. The games are one part of the process. An NBA scout came in this summer and said something I'll never forget. He said, Beard, when the players are NBA players? And I didn't really know how to answer that question. He said, when they are. And so, the idea is to keep working on your game, your left hand, your right hand, your jump shot, your poise, your defense, your IQ, your body, your nutrition, your discipline. And all these things, the games are just one part of it. So the objective here is to compete for a championship. We think we're one of those teams that should be in the fight. It's easy to talk about. It's really hard to do. But we're also equally important, our guys reaching their ultimate goals, which for our best players is the NBA. And to me, the game is only one part of that process.
Yeah, and in the NBA, you're going to have to accept the role unless you're Kevin Durant or James Harden. There's not very many Kevin Durants or James Hardens or LeBrons or players that are at that level. So accepting a role in college is a great way to say, hey, I can do the same thing in the NBA. I need to ask you about Brock Cunningham because it feels like Brock Cunningham and Avery Benson are crisp beard guys. Are they going to lead college basketball, the two of them, in floor burns this season?
They're going to be right there in the top 10 for sure. I know in practice every day we have what we call a Brock Avery moment. We spend a lot of time in the film room like everybody else does, but whenever we have a one-on-one collision between those two guys, like in a blockout situation, I always pause it and really enjoy it. Normally put those on the team text at night. But no, those are two hard-playing guys. There's two guys that obviously play the right way, well respected by their teammates and their opponents for how hard they play. I know we felt that way about Brock, and I know the returners that we have here felt that way about Avery. What I would tell you too, though, is sometimes it gets lost in the story is also what they're really good basketball players. I mean, Avery's played in an Elite Eight, a Final Four, a Monday night game. It's got a box full of rings, and Brock's one of the best kind of up and coming guys in college basketball. In this COVID and these rosters and stuff, it's hard to tell who's who. But I mean, Brock is a sophomore on this year's team. It's kind of crazy to think about. He's got 3 years of eligibility left, but Brock's a good basketball player. You take the identity of how tough he is off the plate, and you just look at the player. He's still a very, very, very good Big 12 player, a guy that I think will play pro basketball one day.
All right, the last thing I got for you is this summer in Augusta at Peach Jam. I know that Jeff Goodman put you on to his iced mocha capo latte chinos, whatever you want to call those things. Have you continued drinking those, or did you realize that if you have more than one of them a week, you're going to get diabetes?
Yeah, I mean, that drink is ridiculous. I mean, it's basically like a milkshake with extra sugar. The morning you're talking about it, I needed some pop, and I felt really good as we were pulling into the what do they call that thing?
Dunkin' Donuts, the drive-through.
Yeah, no, what's the gym called at the Peach Jam though?
The Northwest, whatever I can't remember the Riverview Athletic Center. There you go.
There you go. You know how we all park on the grass and we walk over there? So, man, I was feeling great. And I actually told a couple people, I think Brian Berg, I ran into in the parking lot. And I was like, dude, man, Goodman put me onto something here. So I was a big fan. The problem is, like, halftime of the first game, man, I was just like shaking and I couldn't pay attention. And my ADD was kicking in. I forgot who was playing. I was going through the program about 3 times. So I'm not a believer in the Goodman drink, although I think there's a place for it. Maybe, like a late night in Vegas, get it the next morning or something. But I think if that deal's in your everyday rotation, I don't think you're going to be healthy, and you're probably going to be pushing 250 pretty quick.
That tells you a lot about Jeff Goodman and where he is in life right now. Chris, I appreciate the time. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Before we move on, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up for BetRivers yet, now is the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, it's more secure, and it's more reliable. Now that basketball season is tipping off, get in on the action at betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while I got you here, let's talk about the Field of 68 Media Network, where college basketball matters most all year round. This is a digital media and podcast network that we've been building over the course of the last year. We have shows hosted by some of your favorite players covering the program that they love the most. AJ Guyton hosts the House of Hoosier. Eric Devendorf covers Syracuse on the Scorer's Table. Dan Dickow hosts the Gonzaga Bulldog broadcast. We have Florida's Patrick Young and Duke's Andre Dawkins and North Carolina's Shammond Williams and Michigan's Stu Douglas and Illinois' Deion Thomas. The list goes on and on and on. We have more than 30 shows right now. So hit the links below and check them all out. And while you're at it, make sure that you go check out the Field of 12 Media Network, your home for college football. That was Texas head coach Chris Beard. And now I'm joined by my partner over on the Dauster, T.O., and Fanta podcast, the one and only Terrence Oglesby. Terrence, what's going on, man? How we doing today?
Man, I'm living the dream. We're getting awfully close. You guys have done your season previews for, what seems like about 2 months now. We're almost there. We'll get to talk about Texas today. It has a heck of a team coming in, a lot of new faces. So Chris Beard has his work cut out for him, but the excitement should be pretty good in Austin.
Yeah, you are right. It does have a lot of new faces. We have Marcus Carr, Dylan Disu, Trey Mitchell, Christian Bishop, Timmy Allen, Devin Askew, Avery Benson. That is 7 transfers on a roster that has 12 scholarship players. I think the first and foremost, you've played basketball at high levels. You played in the ACC. You've played overseas. You've played in places where they kind of rebuild rosters on the fly, right? Like that's what happens in some of these European leagues. So how difficult is it to take a group of players that have not really played all that much together and quickly turn them into a team? Because there's a difference between a roster and a team, if you get what I'm saying.
Well, I think the buy-in is the biggest part. And I'm sure Coach Beard talked about it, just having guys embrace that, hey, we have 7 guys that have averaged double figures at some point during their college career right now. We're not going to have 7 guys average double figures on this team. So you're going to have to make peace with that in your mind as soon as you get going. But in Europe, it's pretty much recycles every year. It's just you go in, you go about it a certain way, you go do your job, and then you go home. It's much harder with younger people, though, to be able to get kids to buy into that type of thing. But I think a lot of those guys, Marcus Carr, for example, when he came down to Texas, he realized, hey, I might not get 20 a game, but I'm going to be in a much better position to win. And I think that if that is your goal, ultimately your guys will be okay.
Yeah, I think Marcus Carr is kind of the key to bringing all of this stuff together. And I'm glad that you just mentioned it, because he is a guy in his previous 3 seasons in college basketball, he's gone 14-44 in conference play. He did not have a good season at Pitt the first year that he was at Pitt. He transferred to Minnesota. He did not have a good season the first year he was at Minnesota. And then last year with the Golden Gophers, I believe they went 8-10. Or 8-12 in Big 12 play. He was great at the start of the year. He kind of fizzled off down the end of the season. He's a guy that's kind of known for being something of a shoot first, inefficient scorer. I talked with Chris yesterday, and one of the things that he said is the biggest thing when it comes to someone like a Marcus Carr is you kind of have to get them to believe in what you are selling them to be able to get them to change. And so we'll see if that ends up working out. But I've kind of gotten to the point with Chris Beard where it's just, if he thinks he can get it done, I'm probably just going to believe that he finds a way to get it done, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's done it with guards in the past. I mean, look at Mac McClung, who comes from Georgetown, who really was erratic with his shot selection, and Patrick Ewing pretty much do whatever he wanted. That's not a shot at Pat. It was just the fact that he could still do it at a high rate. Well, he goes and plays for Beard, and Beard tempers him a little bit. But at the same time, Coach Beard has this unique ability to temper it, but still let that player be himself. And he's always been good with really high scoring guards like that. So I think that the adjustment for him, it's not unprecedented for Beard because he's used to guys cycling in and out all the time. He's done it for a long time. He was a junior college coach, which I think is a big portion of why he's going to be able to put this together so quickly. But Marcus Carr is going to be able to figure it out in a hurry. Now, there is a feel out process, obviously, but now with the summer in play and guys getting to come to campus early and things like that, I think it's obviously going to be able to expedite that process a little bit. So Marcus Carr, like when he does get hot, that dude can score.
Yeah.
I mean, like 41 at Nebraska. I mean, like this guy gets it done. And it's just a matter of tempering and selecting times to be that type of aggressive scorer and facilitating to others.
Yeah, and there are options there as well. And I think that if you look at the best teams that Chris Beard has had, it's when he has multiple guys that can be playmakers in his backcourt. This year, along with Marcus Carr, we got Courtney Ramey, who Beard has been raving about to everyone that has spoken to him and everywhere that I've seen him do kind of interview at this point. Andrew Jones is back, who had a really, really good all Big 12 kind of a season. And we also have Jace Febris back and Devin Askew coming in from Kentucky. So there's balance in that perimeter, right? And I think that's important. You can't just key in on Marcus Carr the same way you couldn't just key in on Keenan Evans because Jarrett Culver would kill you. You couldn't just key in on Culver because Matt Mooney would kill you when they made the year they made it to the national title game. So I think that's important for the system that he does run.
Well, I've said this several times, but I'm a puzzle piece guy. So like I look at the backcourt and I look at Marcus Carr, who's a rim attack guy, Devin Askew, a rim attack guy. And then you have Jace Febris, who's a 3-point shooter, Courtney Raby, who's kind of a bulldog, but he shot good percentages, and Jones can shoot the ball well from the perimeter. I like what they've put together as far as I have rim attack guys, I have floor spacers, and the ball's going to have to move, and they're going to have to be willing to make that extra pass. But another addition, and I'm not even sure he's a backcourt addition, but I thought this was an intriguing one. He brought Avery Benson with him from Texas Tech. Avery Benson averaged 2 points a game, 3 points a game. It wasn't much, but the dude is a defensive animal. He has a certain type of tenacity. He brought a piece of Texas Tech's culture that he had established down there up with him to Austin. And I think it's going to mean more than people give it credit for right away. But the mentality that Coach Beard likes his teams to play with, that's huge. And Avery Benson is going to help bring that as well.
Yeah, he's 100% a culture guy, and you need culture guys when you're trying to build the programs that Chris Beard is building. What I'm going to find interesting is when Avery Benson and Brock Cunningham are going up against each other in practice, I feel like it's going to be that, that Spider-Man meme where they're kind of looking at each other and it's like this. Is that you? Is that me? So that's what it's going to be. You have two guys whose role is to basically be that junkyard dog, do everything, defend, hustle. They're going to lead the nation in floor burns. They're going to come into games and they're just going to have bandages all over their arms because those dudes are going to try to out floor burn each other. Let's talk a little bit about the front court, because this is where I think it gets really interesting. The year that they made it to the national title game, I thought that Tariq Owens was so incredibly important and so incredibly undervalued. Not only did you have a 23-year-old 5-man that can knock down threes, but he was a rim attack guy. He was someone that could catch lobs. He was a vertical spacer, and he was someone that you could switch out onto fives. And I think they have, I don't know exactly how it's going to end up kind of playing out in their front court because they have so many different pieces, but Christian Bishop can do that job. Trey Mitchell, I believe, can do that job. He might even be a little bit more skilled than Tariq Owens was. Dylan Dice, who I think has a very, very valuable role in terms of being kind of a little bit more of a bigger, more physical body. And then, of course, Timmy Allen is the guy that you bring in that can do so many different things in terms of scoring the ball. Like he's going to be your bucket getter. I think he'll probably come off the bench, but he's going to be your bucket getter off the bench in a way that maybe Brandon Francis was for the Chris Beard team that made it to the national title game. So how do you see all of this, these front court pieces kind of playing out?
Well, they have spacing. I really like Trey Mitchell. And after seeing a couple of pictures of him here in the preseason, that dude has slimmed down drastically from his time in high school. He was his shape from a physical standpoint was a little bit in question before he got to UMass. I saw a picture of him, their team picture at Texas. He doesn't even look like the same person. It's amazing. He's a skilled 5-man, 6'9". They list him at 245. He might be lighter than that now, but he passes the ball well. He shoots it well. He can operate out on the perimeter. I wouldn't say he's a vertical spacer unless all that weight that fell off of him helped him jump another 10 inches higher, but he's a very skilled post player. Dylan Dessou, I have a lot of respect for his game. I thought he was an excellent player at Vanderbilt. He can really space the floor. He plays defense. Even though Vanderbilt didn't play a lot of defense, and he really rebounds well. Christian Bishop, obviously Christian Bishop. It's an embarrassment of riches. I don't know how to say it more than that. And then Timmy Allen, you say he's coming off the bench. I like that. The more I look at it, he was the first guy I mentioned whenever I was previewing Texas. I like Timmy Allen coming off the bench because he's one-track minded. He can be that spark off the bench that just puts his head down and gets to the rim. There's a lot of variability in how these guys play, a little bit like the backcourt. You got shooters, you got rim attack guy. In the front court, you got rim attack guys, some guys that can step out. And then Christian Bishop, he's listed at 6'7". He plays bigger than 6'7". He's a vertical spacer. He can shoot it as well. And Creighton, they couldn't have been too happy that they lost him, obviously, because he is a talented individual. But it's just the one thing that I look at with this Texas team, if the game is being played at a slow pace, they have an answer. If the game is being played really fast, they'll have an answer. If they have an obvious mismatch in the post, they have an answer with Trey Mitchell and Disu. Like, this is a team that has guys coming from all areas of the floor. And it's just, if they shoot the ball well, I don't know how you guard them. That's going to be the biggest conundrum for anybody who plays Texas this season.
And you know that they're going to be very good defensively. I know that Mark Adams is not there, and we all give credit to Mark Adams for being the person that kind of spearheaded this defense. But I do think that Chris Beard, it's not like he forgot how to coach, right? Like, he's been doing this for however many years. So I do think that they are going to be good defensively. Even if you spend 4, 5, 6 years working with someone that is that good defensively, you're going to pick up some of those principles inevitably. So I am very high on this group. But look, the key to me is going to be balancing the egos. That's always going to be the most difficult part of this. You have 7 guys on this roster that averaged double figures last season for the team that they played on. You're not going to have 7 guys that average double figures a game this season. You have guys that are coming into this program expecting to be playing 25, 30 minutes a game. You cannot have 8, 9, 10 guys playing 25 to 30 minutes a game. There's just not enough minutes to go around. So being able to balance that, being able to make sure that everybody is bought in, everybody is happy, everybody kind of believes that the program and the team is bigger than what they do individually, that is going to be the most important part. And if anybody can do it, T.O., I think that is probably Chris Beard, because that's just what he does. One thing I mentioned to him, and I think is interesting, he comes from a JUCO background. He has JUCO roots. And I do think that if you're looking at the way that college basketball is moving, people that have that JUCO mindset where it's like, I can build rosters every year and turn them into a team, those are the guys I think that are going to have success.
Yeah, and I actually talked to Steve Forbes, who also has JUCO roots, and I asked, how has this helped you guys taking in so many transfers? Are you guys doing certain things a certain way to where you might lose a guy after simply 1 year, where he has 3 years left of it? He said it's tremendous. He said it's exactly what I was dealing with, having to replace 13 players a year at the junior college level. So I think if anybody can do it, it's obviously Beard. Forbes, obviously, I have a lot of respect for him as well, but this isn't a Wake Forest podcast, so I'm talking about Texas. So I have a lot of faith, and I think that actually comes into play more than people know, because you're continuously having to adapt and mix in, and as a coach, mix in not only team goals, but individual goals to incorporate them within the team goals, if that makes sense. So it's a balancing act, and it's a tough one, but if anybody can do it, it'll be Chris Beard.
That is 100% the case. Well, T.O., listen, this was fun. The season is almost here. We are days away. By the time that this thing gets released, we are probably only going to have a week until Texas faces off with Gonzaga in one of the preseason, or one of the first top 10 matchups of the season. So this was fun. I am so psyched that we actually have basketball, and preview season is over. I am done with these videos.
I'm over.
It was a pleasure, man.
Thank you so much.